Good morning. It's good to be here and to be with you. I'm Dale Kimbler. I'm a member of the UU Fellowship of Clemson's Worship Associate team. Each week, this community comes together to participate in worship, music, and reflection. This is where we seek to have our hearts opened and our imaginations fired. This is the place that reminds us that we are deeply connected to one another and all living things. Even though our building is closed, we gather together for weekly online worship. At 11:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings, we also gather for social connection and the sharing of joys and concerns in our Zoom meeting. Please join us. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. This fellowship is a religious community grounded in the heritage and principles of Unitarian Universalism. We seek to create loving community, inspire joy and spiritual growth, and support courageous action. All are welcome, regardless of religious background, political persuasion, ethnicity, age, ability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression. If you have a desire to explore questions of truth and meaning and are respectful of our diversity of people and beliefs, you found kindred spirits here. If you'd like more information about this fellowship or Unitarian Universalism, please see information about us on our website, uufc.org. If you're interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community for online social events, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by the email on our website. And now, here are some announcements for the week. We are now in phase 1 of our reopening program. We can begin the use of our facilities by groups of 10 or fewer outside the building. There are more details in the Weekly Connection. Also in the Weekly Connection, we have recurring events that are listed there, and you can find them by their date and time. 2 new covenant groups are forming. Dismantling White Supremacy is a covenant group that will begin its first meeting Monday of this week. So you have one more chance to sign up for that. Parenting While You will begin later. And for both of these, you can sign up in the Weekly Connection. There is also information in the Weekly Connection about a program of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is an online UU congregation, about a new prison ministry pen pal program. So if you find interest in that, please go to the Weekly Connection and sign up. Now let us begin worship with these opening words, Out of the Flames by Sarah Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise.
We rise, humbly hearted, rise, won't be divided, rise, with Spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in a hope, in prayer, we're right here, in a hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here in hope, in prayer. We're right here and we rise. All of the children rise. Elders with wisdom rise. Ancestors surround us, rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here and we rise. Up from the wreckage, rise. With tears and with courage, rise. Fighting for life, we rise. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here. In hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. In hope, in prayer, we're right here and we rise. Humbly hearted, rise. Won't be divided, rise. With Spirit to guide us, rise.
It is so good to be with you today. My name is Reverend Christina Branham Martin, and I'm the interim minister here at the fellowship. And I welcome the Brumerheim and Wetzler family as they light their chalice at home.
Good job.
Let us share in our words of affirmation spoken each week by this fellowship. We gather together in the spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
Hello there! It's wonderful to be with you all again. Have you ever had a best friend that you did almost everything together with? Was there ever anything about that friend that was different from you? Something that you just didn't really understand? Maybe they were afraid of dogs and you love dogs? Or maybe they love spinach? Or maybe they wear different clothes from you or practice a different religion. Have you ever had an argument with a friend because of a difference between you? It's easy to dislike something that's new or different, and sometimes we can let that dislike get in the way of our friendships. Today's story is about two best friends who are different and who almost let that little difference turn everything into a mess. But sometimes, if you take a moment to stand in each other's shoes, really look and listen, you can learn something great about someone else, and about yourself. The Sandwich Swap by Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah with Kelly DiPuccio, illustrated by Tricia Tusa. It all began with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it ended with a hummus sandwich. Salma and Lily were best friends at school. They drew pictures together. They played on the swings together. They jumped rope together. And they ate their lunches together. But just what they ate was a little different. Lily ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day for lunch. Salma ate a hummus and pita sandwich every day for lunch. And although Lily never said it out loud, she thought Salma's sandwich looked weird and yucky. She felt terrible that her friend had to eat that icky chickpea paste every day. Ew, yuck. And although Salma never said it out loud, she thought Lily's sandwich looked strange and gross. She felt just awful that her friend had to eat that gooey peanut paste every day. Ew, gross. Then, one day, Lily couldn't hold back those pesky thoughts any longer. "Your sandwich looks kind of yucky," she blurted out. "What did you say?" Salma asked, thinking she must have misunderstood her friend. "I said your sandwich looks yucky." Salma frowned. She looked down at the thin, soft bread, and she thought of her beautiful, smiling mother as she carefully cut Salma's sandwich into 2 neat halves that morning. Her feelings turned mad. "Yeah, well, your sandwich looks gross and it smells bad, too," Salma snapped back. Lily looked surprised. She sniffed the thick, squishy bread, and she thought of her dad in his silly apron, whistling as he cut Lily's sandwich into 2 perfect triangles that morning. Lily scowled. "It does not smell bad." "Does too. Ew, yuck. Ew, gross." That afternoon, the friends did not draw pictures together. They did not swing together, and they did not jump rope together. Peanut butter breath, chickpea brains, jelly heads, garlic breath. Pretty soon, the rude insults had nothing at all to do with peanut butter or hummus. "You're weird. You're stupid. You look funny. You dress dumb." And then it happened. Somebody yelled, "Food fight!" Peanut butter and hummus sandwiches and other lunch favorites began flying back and forth between both sides of the lunchroom. They stuck to the walls. They stuck to the ceiling. They stuck to the lunch lady. When the sandwiches were all gone, pudding cups and applesauce and carrot sticks took flight. Salma and Lily looked at one another from across the rowdy, splattered room. They both felt ashamed by what they saw. They both felt really ashamed when the principal called them into her office after they had helped clean up the mess. The following day, Salma set her lunch down across from Lily's. The 2 girls nibbled on their sandwiches in silence. Finally, Lily got up the courage to speak. "Would you like to try a bite of my peanut butter and jelly?" Salma grinned. "Sure, why not? Would you like to try my hummus and pita?" Lily laughed. "I'd like that." "On the count of 3? Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. "Hey, this is delicious!" "Oh, and this is heavenly." The girls giggled and hugged and traded sandwiches. After lunch, Salma and Lily met with the principal again. This time, they were there to suggest a very special event for the whole school. And that's how it all began, with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and ended with a hummus and pita sandwich.
Please join me for a moment of prayer and meditation. Here for Beloved Community by Reverend David Breeden. May I be all in for Beloved Community. May I be all in despite the challenges, May I be all here for beloved community. May I be ready for the beauty because I long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community. May I see the beauty of you in company, of us in company. May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together. May it be so. Spirit of community, in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we now turn our minds and hearts towards one another, seeking to bring into our circle of care all who need our love and support, and all those who seek to share their joys and hopes. We will now light candles in recognition of those joys and concerns shared. We light this first candle of great joy for the welcoming of a new grandchild. We celebrate this new joyous life with you. We light this candle of joy for the lowering of the age bracket in this state for the COVID-19 vaccinations. We celebrate the comfort and hope that these bring to so many in the fellowship. We light this candle of joy as we move into phase 1 of the fellowship's reentry plan. It is wonderful that this allows for small outside gatherings just in time for the coming of spring weather. We light this candle of concern for all of those who are in the process of healing physically and emotionally. Know that you are loved and you are not alone. We light this candle of concern for all those across the country who this week have been cold, hungry, and thirsty as the winter storms ravaged their homes and the infrastructure of failing power systems. We light this candle for the honoring of February as Black History Month. We acknowledge that Black history is our history. May the work of this month continue for the whole year as we learn how to understand that the stories of all persons, including those of persons of color, Black and brown, are commingled in intricate and complex ways. And we light this final candle in the knowledge that some of the most deeply felt sorrows and exuberantly felt joys lie unspoken in some hearts here today. We are a single, separated people, linked into community by love and need in our search for truth. What touches one of us touches us all. We live by our shared concern, our gathered love. We are a part of the web of life that makes us one with all of humanity, one with all of the universe. We are grateful for those sacred connections that enable us to remember, to love, to care, and to celebrate.
This reading is from Messy and Imperfect Beloved Community by Lila Ibrahim. I have been going to the same church for nearly 30 years. I have filled a variety of leadership positions from OWL teacher to board president, usher coordinator to stewardship co-chair, and in all those years, my congregation has had ample opportunity to disappoint me. I am disappointed when people don't think my justice project is the one we should collectively work on. I am disappointed when people want different music than I do. I'm disappointed that we don't all agree that our children's ministry is the most important priority in the church. I'm disappointed that people don't give enough time, talent, or treasure to the church as I do. I am disappointed, well, you get the idea. In nearly 30 years of relationship, there have been lots of disappointments. 2 or 3 times over the years, I have been so disappointed that I seriously questioned remaining in my congregation. I have doubted its ability to provide the salvation of which we speak. Lived, beloved community. On those occasions, I thought, screw it. I can just stop going to church for a while or forever. But staying away has never helped me through such times. Rather, coming in closer, telling people about my spiritual crisis, listening, sharing, caring, and worshiping have helped me know that this is where I belong, even when church is the source of my frustration and disappointment. Because we're not in church to be with people who want to sing the same music or rally for the same cause or attend the same retreats. We are in church to learn to love better. And this can only happen when we love past our disappointments and return to a place of acceptance and affirmation. This is true in our personal lives, in our work lives, and in our church lives. It is a deeply spiritual practice. There is really only one choice between imperfect community and no community. Again and again, we are all called to commit ourselves to building a more just, more diverse, and yet ever messy and imperfect, beloved community.
I share with you a sermon written by Unitarian Universalist Reverend Gretchen Haley. She tells of her daughter, 8 years old, jumping up and down before Christmas with antsy excitement. It's almost here, it's almost here. How much longer? How many hours? This has been going on with increasing intensity for the last 3 weeks, Reverend Haley wrote. My partner and I started to call her the personal Christmas countdown, and I started to worry. How could it ever live up to all of her expectations? And so I gave her parental counsel, gave it my best shot. Dear, let's sit down. Let's sit down and talk. The sooner it's here, the sooner it will be over, and that will be sad, right? So how about we just be okay with it not being here yet? Let's not rush so much. And she was like, yeah, but how many more hours before Christmas? It was just no use. With excitement and hope running that high, there was nothing I could have said to talk her down. This type of no one can talk me out of this enthusiasm is one reason it has taken me 5 years to finally decide to deliver this sermon. See, I started crafting it back when leading for the first time the Path to Membership class. There's such a beautiful enthusiasm and hopefulness usually present in these Unitarian Universalist newcomers classes. If you give people a chance to share what brought them there, most everyone will express an inspiring gratitude to have found a faith that affirms we need not think alike to love alike. This enthusiasm isn't actually what made me want to write this sermon, at least not in and of itself. No, it's more the combination of these great hopes and positive feelings with the stories I often hear from these same folks a few months later or years down the line, or it is their sudden absence from the community a few years later. From these stories and these absences, I have come to realize that what I really need to tell people as they begin their journey with Unitarian Universalism generally, and with any congregation particularly, including this one, is that we will disappoint you. That's the title of the sermon I've been thinking of writing. Well, you might understand my hesitancy. We will disappoint you. Often I say it in my head like a Queen song, we will disappoint you. Not very inspiring, I know, and just like with my daughter, I have wondered if telling new folks would be any good. Most of us, when we are experiencing and anticipating only the goodness, refuse or are not able, or maybe both, to imagine that we will let each other down in small or big ways. But finally, after 5 years of thinking about it, in one of our membership exploration workshop sessions, a small group ministry for newcomers, I was talking about what it means for us to be in a covenantal faith and the deep meaning I found in the concept of covenant. I told the group that ultimately the best gifts of a covenantal relationship, that is, a relationship based on mutual big promises, are not realized when the relationship remains perfect, but are only truly felt when the promises of that relationship are broken and you decide to keep going. When everything falls apart and you decide not to leave, when you decide the relationship matters enough to forgive, you stay put to transform. It's when promises are broken and you keep going. That's when the real gifts of life arrive. And it is this understanding that made me decide to give this sermon once and for all. Perhaps you know the story that is told in the Hebrew Scriptures. A long time ago, there was a man named Jacob. He was traveling with his big family and for a long time trying to get to their homelands. And one night, he sent most of his family to go ahead of him across the river. Only he was left behind along the riverbanks. And as he started to sleep, a man came upon him, or maybe it was God. The story as it comes to us is not clear. In any case, Jacob begins to wrestle with this man, God. They wrestle and wrestle and wrestle for hours until one point the man tells Jacob, "Let go." And Jacob says no. He won't give up until he receives a blessing. So they keep wrestling and Jacob gets injured in his hip. And they keep wrestling and Jacob will not give up. And finally, the man God stops and blesses Jacob, saying, "You now have a new name, Israel," which means he who has wrestled with God and won. So often we stop wrestling before the blessing comes. We feel injured and we walk away believing the injury was less than enough. And sometimes it is. But often, if we can stay in, there is a deeper and fuller gift, a life-changing blessing available for all of us. As one example of these types of blessings, let's talk about failure. Those moments when we or someone we love makes a terrible mistake or many mistakes. In his book, Unexpected Gifts, Discovering the Way of Community, religious leader Christopher Howards tells the story of when his close friend Caleb screwed up pretty badly. And in response, he decided he should write him a letter. that detailed all the accusations that he was hearing about him, neatly structuring them in topical order, starting with the lesser sins and ramping up to a heartless crescendo of judgment towards his most humiliating failures. Then he sent copies of that letter to a bunch of Caleb's friends. He wanted to hold him accountable after all, and then he sent it to Caleb himself. Reflecting many years later, Howard said he realized, "I failed my friend in his most vulnerable moment. I held my beliefs over his belonging and used his inability to live up to my standards as an excuse to exclude him. I demonstrated fidelity to a set of behavioral expectations rather than taking the opportunity to love." In stark contrast, Howards tells the story of when he found himself in a similar low point to Caleb's, and he said, "To my great surprise, most of my friends didn't mash me deeper into my failures over identifying who I am as a person with my actions. They talked me through the pain. They gave me the courage and hope that I would find my way back, and that even if I failed again, that those things wouldn't define me." How we respond to failure, our own or others, can mean the difference between despair and transformation, between isolation and beloved community. As Howard says, communities and relationships don't fail when we experience failure. The real and lasting failure comes when we use our broken and wounded members' mistakes to control them. When we do that, we perpetuate the strangling nature of failure, using someone's behavior to stoke the fires of shame and guilt and humiliation and resentment. Thinking back to moments of failure in your own life, how have you or others responded? Has it been an opportunity to come in closer, to struggle and wrestle together? Or has it caused further separation? Unitarian Universalism affirms we are defined not by our best or worst actions, but by our inherent sacredness. Living by this affirmation invites us to accept one another as we are, broken and blessed, failing and succeeding, at our best and at our worst. To be in relationship with all of these truths on the table, which means we should be very practiced at forgiveness. Not an easy forgiveness, not automatic forgiveness, but forgiveness that wrestles and struggles together. Forgiveness that affirms that none of us is beyond the reach of love and redemption. None of us, at any point. As another example of these unexpected gifts, let's talk about betrayal. Betrayal is a kind of failure, but failure that gets really personal. It's failure that's done to you, even when you're the one doing the betraying by not living up to your commitments. Howard says that if you stay in any relationship or community long enough, you will experience betrayal. All of us betray our communities and friendships, and all of us are betrayed by them. It's part of the meta-narrative of the great human story. Betrayal is one of the perplexing and peculiar gifts that come from weaving our lives together with others. And like with failure, it's how you respond to this inevitable betrayal that will determine who you and your community will become. Often we experience a sense of betrayal when we are in our most difficult moments, which usually means we're not our best selves, and we aren't easy to love in those moments. That our friends respond to us in those moments not by coming in closer, but by stepping away. That they talk about us with others rather than talking to us directly. That they seem to act in cross purposes from after having aligned in so many ways for so long. These things feel like betrayal. And so, being in not so good a place ourselves, we transmit our pain outward, relieved to have found a place to put blame for our misery. But given that most of the struggle with how to respond to our own vulnerable moments, it's no surprise that we are relatively clueless when it comes to walking with a friend or partner when they are in a bad place. Sometimes what we experience as betrayal is actually misguided attempts at love, or attempts to say, I see your struggles, and I don't know what to do, and I love you. I feel bad. As with failure, rather than allowing the pain of betrayal to pull us apart, we might imagine it as an opportunity to realize just how woven our lives are together. There is no betrayal, after all, without relationship. Feeling betrayed teaches us who we care about and what we need from them. What a gift it would be to be able to say with clarity to someone we love, here, precisely is what I need when I'm struggling. And the best way to know what that is to pay attention to when you feel betrayed because your friend did the opposite. As I've been describing these gifts available when we keep going and we continue wrestling, I want to clarify that I am not advocating staying in a relationship no matter what. Sometimes it's only the ending of a relationship that allows life to flourish. Discerning the difference between when you need to stay put and when you need to let go is never simple or straightforward, and it is surely the topic of a whole nother sermon for another day. Let's agree that sometimes you need to change jobs or roles. Friendships, marriages need to end, and people need to leave community, especially when abuse is involved. But what's more, I do not mean to advocate that suffering is a necessary and a good thing in the way that Christian orthodoxy has sometimes asked its followers to suffer as Jesus suffered. That good can come from betrayal does not make betrayal good. That transformation can be found in the midst of pain, does not justify pain. I only mean to recognize that life does include suffering. And rather than imagining we will be able to make a life that avoids the messy and the imperfect, or the disappointing and the painful, we can walk through these struggles knowing that there are gifts too in the process. I accept that life is a mixture of gifts and losses. Yet I am an optimist to this fellowship. This community celebrates with a steady sense of optimism and faith for who and how we can be together, even with periods of strife in our past. As Reverend Haley writes about failure and betrayal and disappointment, the optimism that I hold need not be blind to the likelihood of the disappointment in our future. If we in this fellowship, as in our lives, are truly to seize the greatest potential and to pursue our most visionary dreams, if we are to learn how to love better, then the messy, imperfect, beloved community will surely show itself. We will disappoint you. We will fail and betray each other and ourselves. We will have our hearts broken. You, me, all of us. And when these moments happen, we have a choice to stay or to leave. And what I want to invite you to is to consider the possibility of coming in closer rather than fleeing. Wrestle with us, with each other, with yourselves, until we discover together the blessing. Wrestle with us until we transform. May it be so, and amen. As we come to the end of our service and our time together, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the fire of commitment, the energy of action, or the warmth of community. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends.